Okay, everybody, let's start this study with a brief quiet time, followed by a version of the set aside prayer. God, please set aside everything that I think I know about myself, my unmanageability, my spiritual path, and you for an open mind and a new experience of myself, my unmanageability, my spiritual path, and especially you. Thanks for taking the steps with us. My name is David. I'm a recovered alcoholic and drug addict, and with me is my companion.
And my name is David. I'm a recovered alcoholic and drug addict. Welcome, everyone.
This is not a fellowship group or meeting. Instead, over 12 weeks, we are going to be we are taking the 12 steps of recovery all together, following the precise, specific, clear-cut directions in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because this is not a fellowship group, anyone interested in the program recovery in the Big Book is welcome to take the steps with us. The goal is to take the steps and learn how to take someone quickly through the steps. Some other information and ground rules. We are recording the audio. We will share it out, although you can always find it on YouTube under the Big Book Compendium list. And if you search on places like Spotify and Apple Podcasts, just look for Purpose of this book and you'll be able to find it. Let's see. If you are not in our WhatsApp group, Emily will put the link to join in the chat. Please commit to be here every week and staying on camera. There's no attendee comment portion during the study, but we will field questions. So put those questions in the chat. We'll try to answer them as we go. And if you're really having trouble with anything that we're talking about, definitely let us know. You can private chat us and we'll make time for you outside of this study. We're definitely not the official Big Book experts or gurus. We're just sharing our experience and knowledge from our study of the book and the teachings of other recovered people. Our dictionary person is Emily. Emily, wave to the room, and Em will put some definitions in the chat if we have them. And sometimes we show some resources, some documents, like we've got our 4-step worksheets, 8-step worksheet. You can find those things at www.purposeofthisbook.com. Don't be weirded out that it's a website. It's not a commercial website. There's no advertising or anything. It's just a recovery website with information about 12-step recovery. Okay, one quick announcement. So, controversial schedule change. 12 steps in 12 weeks has been extended to 12 steps in 13 weeks. We're going to add a bonus week. Here's what we're going to do today. We're going to get through step 11. Then next week, we're going to do a recap, 5 minute per step, steps 1 through 11. And we're going to have a brand new original cheat sheet for everybody. So, in addition to our outline sheet that's got all the pages and paragraphs, that we've been following along this whole time, we're going to have another sheet that's going to give some other key points about the content. So it'll be another great tool for you to use when you're taking someone through the steps yourself. So next week going to be recap 1 through 11, and then the week after we'll wrap it up with step 12. Okay, fantastic. Um, David, you want to give a minute on step 10 as we transition into
Yeah,
routine here?
yeah, surely. So I wrote something a little down here. So what we started at on page 84 last week is step 10. And what we went through was the 10-step disciplines and their spiritual disciplines. And the key words that we're looking for on page 84 in the second paragraph is that we're looking for the words watch. That's the spiritual discipline. We're looking for the spiritual discipline of ask. So what we're doing here is we're watching for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. And when these crop up, we ask. That's a prayer. God wants to remove them. That's a spiritual discipline. The third spiritual discipline in that paragraph is we discuss them with someone immediately. So discuss the third spiritual discipline. And then the fourth one is we make amends. That's a spiritual discipline quickly if we harm anyone. And the fifth spiritual discipline is we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. So those are 5 spiritual disciplines that we're looking at in the 10th step. My short little paragraph that I wrote right before the meeting is the 10th step is telling us sanity has been restored. I've been given the miracle of a changed attitude towards alcohol, and the problem has been removed. A warning about staying in fifth spiritual condition, but the tools on how to stay in fifth spiritual condition. Now I can trust my will because it's been aligned with God's, and I live in the world of the spirit. That means I've left the world of self. That's it.
All right, guys. Step 11. I was going to say this is a good one. They're all great ones. So what is step 11? I'm going to tell you what step 11 is. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Okay, and the study of step 11 happens at the very bottom. It starts at the very bottom of page 85, literally the first the first full sentence that's left. So here we go, bottom of 85. Step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. Both things, right? We shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. That means don't skip it. Don't be afraid. Better men than we are using it constantly. It works if we have the proper attitude. Do a little circle around the word attitude. We're going to give you a nice callback in the book. So it works if we have the proper attitude and work at it. It would be easy to be vague about this matter, yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions. So real quick before I let David jump in here, what Bill is saying here is basically, this is part of the concept that was introduced to us way back in We Agnostics. We're letting go of old ideas, old prejudices about a higher power, about spirituality, and about spiritual terms. And we're open-minded to these things about prayer and meditation. So don't be shy about it. Let go of our old thinking. This is something that we need to wrap our arms around and really more than embrace. We have to bear hug these ideas of prayer and meditation. So let's not be vague. Let's not be amorphous. We have some definite, that means specific, real, tangible suggestions to start with, and then we grow beyond, we grow into new things.
Yeah, so on the bottom of page 85, it introduces us to the 11th step, and they're talking about, they suggest prayer and meditation. So it's really a spiritual discipline, and it's not really a suggestion, even though Bill's making it, he's being very liberal here when he says that, because we are undisciplined people, so we let God discipline us in this way. So what better way to let God discipline me than through prayer and meditation? And my prayer is about my intention. So what I go to God with, what are my intentions? Not to hit the lottery or change my wife's behavior, or, ridiculous stuff like that. It gives us directions earlier in the book about what the proper prayers could be and why they'd be silly to pray for ourselves. And we can see how foolish that would be. But meditation is about listening. It's about how much time do I spend, and I usually spend somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes in the morning. I read some meditation books, and then I contemplate on that. So quiet contemplation is the definition that I use when it comes to meditation, and I think that was Bill's intention also. And I didn't give this to Emily today, but it talks about meditation in the 1938 dictionary as reflection, close and continued thought. Sit there with closed and continue thoughts. So here's a suggestion of what I do, and this is what I think I got it from Mark Houston or some of my favorite speakers, is sitting quietly. And just like if I was outside and watching the clouds go by, not those dark clouds that Emily's dealing with in Florida there, because she's going to get stormed on soon because you can't see the clouds. It's just one big black blah. So, but what we have here is I got some white puffy cumulus clouds outside. I just let those clouds float by, right? I'm just looking at them. Same thing with my thoughts. When I'm in quiet contemplation, I'm just letting my thoughts come and go. I'm not focusing on them. I can't quiet my mind enough. I've done it. I have actually done it where I had no other thought other than I had a peace of mind right in the moment for a brief moment. I can't pull that off every time. But with this practice, it can be done, because I've heard a lot of speakers talk about this. And then page 86, it talks about it works if we have the proper attitude and we work at it. So if we would go back to page 55, so we'll bounce around the big book a little bit and go to the fourth paragraph, I believe it is. 55, fourth paragraph. It says in We Agnostics. So we're in step 2 here in We Agnostics, even though we're talking about step 11, but Bill addresses the proper attitude here. 55, fourth paragraph. We can only clear the ground a bit if our testimony, and this goes right along with what David just got done talking about, letting go of our own thinking, or our old thinking, or old prejudice. Help sweep away prejudice, enable you to think honestly, encourage you to search diligently where within yourself. Then, if you wish, you can join us on the Broad Highway. So, what the Broad Highway was introduced to us 20 pages later in the fifth step when we're talking about walking hand in hand with our Creator. Then we can thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know Him better. Because why do we know Him better? Because we know truth, and where there's truth, there is God. So that this is a new relationship with my Creator as I'm building it through the work of the steps. And then it says, with this attitude, this is a promise. You cannot fail. Open mindedness, letting go of my old ideas, starting to think honestly, and then searching diligently, taking that inventory inside myself. The consciousness of our belief is sure to come to you. So this will come to me if I practice this. So back to our reading today on page 86. So it says it works if we have the proper attitude and work at it. So how will we work at it? Well, we just got done doing step 10 last week. And I just got done doing an introduction to what step 10 looks like in the spiritual disciplines and those 5 things: the watch, the ask, the discuss, the amend, and the turn. And when I do those things, that allows me to stay disciplined enough spiritually that I can stay and I can have the proper attitude. And then it said it would be easy to be vague about this matter. This is not about being vague. This is about inviting God in. Like, I invite God into what? My relationship with my wife. Why? Because that's not my wife. It happens to be that my wife and I were brought together by God, and we've learned how to treat each other better. My finances, that's not my money. That's not my career. God gave me that and He entrusts me with it, and I got to do the best job I can with it. I cannot be irresponsible. And then it says, yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions. So we, as the first 100, and through their experiences, because it's not about knowledge, it's about experience of other people today, that I can trust the fact that if it works for them, it can work for me as long as I work at it.
Okay, so here come some definite and valuable suggestions. Top of 86. When we retire at night, so it's telling me exactly when to do this, we constructively, that means we don't beat ourselves up, we constructively review our day. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? Those words ought to sound pretty familiar by the time we're up to step 11.
Mm-hmm.
Do we owe an apology? Have we kept something to ourselves which should be discussed with another person at once? By the way, you noticing some symmetry here with what David recapped in step 10 with us? Were we kind and loving toward all? It's a tough one in a lot of days. What could we have done better? Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time? Typically, yes, for this self-centered addict. Or were we thinking of what we could do for others, of what we could pack into the stream of life? That means, am I contributing or am I just focused on me? But we must be careful. There's the M word, must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection. Again, this is not about beating ourselves up. This is an inventory, looking at the good and the bad. So we were careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection, for that would diminish our usefulness to others. If I'm focused on myself and all the stuff that I think I did wrong, I'm not thinking about you and how I can help you. After making our review, after making our inventory, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. So beyond what I was already chiming in there, I'm just going to say one thing, and I'm sure I said it last week. There's not too many things that would change in the big book or with the steps. If there's any one thing I would change, I think I would just change the order of steps 10 and 11. And the only reason I would do that is, as we're studying here, step 11 prescribes an end of the day routine for me. It prescribes a beginning of the day. So I start my day with God in 11. I end my day with God in 11. But all day long, I'm spot checking with God in 10. Not just because I have a minor dusting of OCD, that's my preference, but it doesn't matter. The idea is that I am aware and close to God from the moment I open my eyes until the moment that I'm visiting the Sandman.
Yeah, and when we look at this thing, when we retire at night. So when is this? This is every day, guys. This is every day. I do not miss this, no matter what. When I'm on vacation last week, no matter where I'm at, I always do this. Now, does this need to be right before I go to bed? And maybe again, I'm being a little liberal, and I'm taking I suggest to my guys, if it works for you after dinner, go ahead and do it after dinner, as long as you're doing it. Now, David and I use an app too.
Yeah.
Some people are not big on the app thing. Some of my sponsees send me their app of the 11th step. And when they go through this inventory, because this is another inventory. And what I do with that app is I peruse it. I don't study it like the Torah or something. I'm not doing that. I'm looking for things that are going to be similar day after day after day. And that's going to be something I'll address with my sponsees when I get with them either once a week or on a phone call or something. But I do this every night. And there's 10. So David and I are really big about consideration. We're really big about taking statements and turning them into questions. And we get that from the great Mark Houston. That's where we got all that. And that's how we study this book. Taking statements, turn them into question, personalizing, put them in third person, first person. I don't care what you do, just whatever works for you. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through this. We constructively review our day. First question. And this is, again, a consideration. Were we resentful? Pause. Have a meditative moment, a quiet contemplation. Was I resentful throughout the day? This is vital because whatever I don't really look at, I'm probably going to drag into tomorrow. So this is why this is here, so I can be free at the end of my day. And I'm going to end with something because God has limitless power, and I have limited power. So I need God to alleviate me of these things. We did that in 6 and 7, but that is still valuable and vital to my recovery today to be free of this. So the first one was I resentful? Was I selfish? Question. Ask yourself, was I dishonest? Was I afraid? Do we owe an apology? Have we kept something to ourselves which should be discussed with another person at once? That was the 6th one already. We're not even halfway through the paragraph. This is a very good inventory. Doesn't say it has to be written. Again, we use the app. You can do whatever you want to do here. But for me, I ponder on each one of these things at the end of the night. Were we kind of loving toward all? 7. Seventh spiritual discipline there, question there. What could we have done better? That's the one that I always could find a better way to do a lot of things I do. I'm not going to give you an example. You can figure that out for yourself. Were you thinking of ourselves most of the time? Yeah. I don't think too little of myself or too much of myself. That's all I do is think of myself. I have a lot of windshield time, so I try to fill my time up with something productive, something spiritual, a lot of speakers, stuff like that. Otherwise, I am thinking of myself. Then it says, of what we could pack into the stream of life. What is the stream of life? How much time do I spend in prayer and meditation? That is a question I have to ask myself. So I'm trying to pack in all this stuff in my life. And in the morning, I have that opportunity. And we're going to get to that in a second here in the next paragraph. If I spend 5 minutes with God, that's what I'm taking into the next 23 hours and 55 minutes. Not to say that I can't invite God in all day long, and I do, but how much time am I spending with God in the morning? Because that's what I'm taking into my day. And then it says, but we must be careful not to drift in worry, remorse, or morbid reflection. So that is a warning. So not to beat myself up, not to get all beat down from all the things that I didn't do right and morbid, thinking of, this, oh, woe is me. And this is I'm a terrible human being. And then it says, for that would diminish our usefulness. I could see why that would do that. If I'm not, this is not a negative. Remember, David started out by saying this is a constructive review. It's not a destructive review. Bill is re-emphasizing that at the end of the page. And after making our review, after I did those 10 questions there, we asked God's forgiveness. So I asked God from the bottom of my heart to please forgive me for when I was selfish and I wasn't thinking of my wife and putting her common welfare first, or I was afraid that I was going to lose that job, or I wasn't going to have enough money to do that or the other thing, because I'm not putting my faith in and trust in God that He would take care of it. He's taking care of all those things as long as I do the work. And then it says, and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. So what corrective measures should I be taking? That is part of the quiet contemplation, so that I have that ready to go for the next day. And then at the end of that prayer, I add a little caveat. And my caveat is this. It's just like, okay, God, thank you for a wonderful experience that I had today with all the things that came my way. And I'm grateful for that. I hope in return that you were as proud of me as I was grateful to you. And I know I come short all the time. I do. But the thing is I understand that He is forgiven. This is my God. Your God can be whatever you want it to be. We don't have a God in AA or CA or NA or AA or anything. But I just know that God is forgiving, loving, caring, and timeless and timely. So for me, he is forgiving, and I get to start my next day in a minute here. Go ahead, David.
So we just talked about how do we conclude that our day went based on what our plans for the day were. And then I go to sleep and I wake up in the morning. And then what do I do? Well, on awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. Now it's time to do what? We consider our plans for the day. So every day, this is cyclical. Before we begin, before I start thinking about my plans for the day, which I'm going to create a train wreck over, before I do that, we ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking that it be divorced from self pity, dishonest, or self seeking motives. Again, words that should all be familiar to us from previous inventory work. Under these conditions, under what conditions? Under the conditions of being divorced from self pity, dishonesty, and self seeking motives. So, under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties, that means our brains, with assurance. For after all, God gave us brains to use. Right? It's got to be primed. It's got to be in the right place. It's got to be cleared of self and fear and all those other dangerous things for me. Our thought life, the way that we think, will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. Did you guys notice the promise there?
Mm.
It's saying if I spend that time with God in the morning, and again, let go my old ideas. Say, I can start my day asking for direction. And part of that direction is, God, please don't let me think about me all day long and screw things up. If I do that, if I legitimately, honestly, earnestly ask for that help from God, I'm going to get it. And then the promise is I'm going to have a greater level of thinking, right? Beyond anything that I've experienced before. But it has to be cleared of the wrong motives. It has to be cleared from self.
Yeah, so remember, we're operating in the world of the spirit now. So this is a new place where self does not exist, where I'm separated from self. And sometimes it's just briefly, but more conscious contact I have with God, the more self, the less self shows up. And this is my direction in the morning. On awakening, let us think. So what my think is, when I say think, God, what would you have me be? Not what would you have me do? What would you have me be? I'm not the fix it guy. I used to have a sponsor for like 20 years. He used to say, dude, you're like the fix it guy, huh? You can fix your wife, you can fix your kids, you can fix your boss, you can fix the government, you can fix all this stuff, right? No, you're not the fix it guy. Why don't you start asking God, what would you have you be in your relationship with your wife, in at your employer, with your finances? And then God, and then it gives us directions. It says we consider our plans for the day. So again, a big word that David and I use over and over again is to consider, is sit in quiet contemplation over that stuff. And then it says, before we begin, so we begin what? Before we begin considering our plans for the day. And before listening to the inner voice and how to do, this is my note, how to do, we know we were supposed to listen to God. How are we supposed to know that we're supposed to listen to God? Because right after it says we ask God to direct our thinking from what? So God is going to tell us his plan for our lives in the form of inspiration, intuitive thought. That's going to come in the next paragraph. So we consider our plans for today. Before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking. Then we can start thinking. And then we're asking to be divorced from what? Some self-pity. We're familiar with this stuff. This isn't our fourth step. Dishonest and self-seeking motives. And then the promise that David pointed out is under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance, for after all, God gave us brains to use. So thank you for that. I needed some brains. I haven't had them most of my life. Now I know that I can use them to align myself with God. And our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. And that has always been my problem. The wrong motives are that I'm thinking of self. I need to be removed from self. And back on page 62, we find out that we can't remove self, that God does that for us.
Mm. So we covered what do we do at night, and then we go to sleep. Then we covered, to get us started, right? Cover what we do in the morning, how we spend some time with God. And I'm telling you, if you're not in the practice of taking at least a half an hour of quiet time. And ideally, you can spend even more, 45, 60 minutes. It is life changing when you take quiet time with
Mm.
God in the morning. I am telling you. So, what happens as we are now contemplating our plans for the day? So, continuing the bottom of 86. In thinking about our day, we may face indecision. It means we don't know how we should go, how our thoughts should go. We may not be able to determine which course to take, right? We're uncertain in our contemplation. So, what do? Here, we ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought, or a decision. We relax and take it easy. Again, remember, we're on the broad highway. We're walking arm in arm with the spirit of the universe. We're not struggling here. God is helping me. It's saying, I'm ideally, I'm going to ask, can you inspire me to figure out the right decision? Or can you just give me a little intuitive thought just to get me going, like a little hint? Or sometimes a decision. And I've had those. David and I have shared experiences like this where troubled about something, take it to prayer, take it to prayer, take it to prayer. And then one morning just wake up and I'm like,
Mm.
oh, this is the right decision. Right. And it's clear. I don't know why I didn't get it before because God was probably talking and I was probably blocking him out with too much self. Right. So I pray for a little inspiration, intuitive thought, or a decision. I relax and take it easy. God he's parked right back here in the back right quadrant of my brain. He's talking to me. He's whispering. We don't struggle. We're often surprised how the right answers come after we've tried this for a while. So again, if you're just getting into prayer meditation, the hallmark of an alcoholic or an addict is we want instant gratification. God, give me the answer to this now. That is not how God works. God works on his time, not on my timeline. What used to be the hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. I just said it. God talks to me. He's right back here. I always point to this part. He whispers to me. He doesn't yell. He's just always constantly whispering to me right from here. Here's a little warning though. Being still inexperienced and having just made conscious contact with God, it's not probable that we're going to be inspired at all times. So it's like, I'll just calm down a little bit here. We might pay for this presumption in all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. What does that mean? That means if I'm trying to hurry getting that inspiration, intuitive thought, or decision, and I'm not relaxing, I'm going to convince myself that I'm here, that I'm getting something from God.
Mhm.
It's not going to be God. It's going to be David. Not that David. It's this David coming up with some crazy notion that's going to get me in trouble. So we might pay for this presumption in all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. Nevertheless, we find that our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more on the plane of inspiration. That's another promise. If I stick to this prayer and meditation, if I am in these disciplined behaviors of 10 and 11 every day, we come to rely upon it. Damn right. God can do and think and help me feel and inspire and intuit all these things in ways that I never could. Right. So you better believe that I rely on it.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of a callback to what we were doing when we retire at night too. And when we think about our day, we may face indecision. So when I'm sitting back, when we read this, we must be careful not to drift in worry, remorse, or morbid reflection. So when I worry, it's because I'm operating on self-reliance. And when I operate on God reliance, I need not to worry. That makes sense. Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I ain't got nothing to worry about. And then it talks about when morbid reflection. When I walk around worried, full of morbid, remorseful or morbid reflection, it's because I'm thinking of myself. And I can't be available to others when I do that. So I got to see how I got to be free of this stuff. And this is why I'm making this conscious contact with God. And this brings me back to the disciplines of 10 and 11. So it says we may not be able to determine which course to take. So counsel. It talks about it in the big book earlier in the book that we should counsel with others. I think it's in the chapter 2 wives. I just can't recall the page it's on right now, but I should counsel with others. That's why I have a sponsor, and he knows he's my sponsor. And I have running buddies in this program that I can do a 10-step with. It's very important I do that. But the promises in the second prayer here in the 11th step, this is the second prayer. It says, here we ask God for inspiration, intuitive thought, or decision. So remember, anytime we see the word ask, I am assured that that is a prayer. God, please give me inspiration, intuitive thought, or decision. And David brought up a really good point. God has given us all time. Otherwise, we'd be bouncing off the wall. It'd be like, I don't know if anybody's been to Costco. This is just my inventory of people that go to Costco, right? They don't know how to stay in their lane, right? At least in this country and in Canada too, everybody drives on the right. Maybe in England, not so much, right, Andy? You drive on the other side of the road, right? But here we drive on the right, and in the grocery store, nobody, the aisles are so big, they're all over the dang place, right? It drives me cuckoo. That's why I only go at certain times of the day when there's not big crowds. So, what I need to do is learn how to relax and take it easy,
Mm,
not be so darn anxious. It's not all about me. It's about the moment I'm spending with my wife. It's about the moment that thinking that I can even afford to go to Costco. That is absolutely ridiculous. I don't care how many 24 hours I got, and not be concerned about paying that bill at the end of the day. We don't struggle. That's a new concept for me. I've always struggled because I think I got to figure everything out. I don't have to do that. I have a personal relationship with my creator today because I'm not blocked. We're often surprised how the right answer comes after we tried this for a while. That is a time frame. Got to do this for a while. This is a practice. 10 and 11 are spiritual disciplines. This is where I have to live. This is recovered people live in that because if I don't live here, I will forget the whole point of step one. The whole point of step one says that I'm powerless over alcohol, dash, my life is unmanageable. Where am I at in my current state of mind with step one? Well, if I drop off my meetings, if I'm not staying in 10 and 11, and I'm not working with other people today, I'm going to start losing sight of step one.
yeah.
I don't care how many 24 hours I've been. I don't care. So this is why 10 and 11 are so vital. Listen to Mark Houston. He does a great job talking about these things. This is where I get this stuff from. I didn't come up with any of this on my own. None of this. It's just so important to understand the foundation is of all. This will make all 12 steps the foundation. Without a strong foundation, I'm sunk. I'm a real alcoholic who drank no matter what. And I haven't had to take a drink or a thought of a drink in a very long time. Not about just staying sober. It's about a personal relationship with my creator so that I can be of service to God and all his kids.
One of the dangers, because David's alluding to the dangers, right? It's easy to let up in the spiritual program of action. There's a
Mm-hmm.
bit right in the 12 and 12 that talks about people who become two steppers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're just taking 1 and 12. So one, oh yeah, I'm an alcoholic. Oh yeah, I'm a drug addict. Oh no, yeah, I'm carrying the message, but I've turned into a coach instead of a player. What about 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? I have to constantly be in the cycle of all those steps. And the easiest way, because I still like easy, is to live in 10 and 11. If I'm living in 10 and 11, I'm perpetually doing 1 through 9. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
really what they are. And then I have an authentic 12-step message to carry, right? And the thing is, I must do this and I must be accountable to other people. And David and I, as running buddies, and some of our other people, we're good at calling each other on this stuff. When we bring it to each other, we give spiritual considerations and say, hey, man,
Mm-hmm.
something's wrong, right? What's missing, right? We need to have that level of accountability. You can have it with a sponsor for sure, but it can be with a sponsee, it can be a friend in recovery, whatever. Right? So let's just recap, because again, I think sometimes people get overwhelmed. But if you look at what we're studying here, it's very simple direction. When you just distill it down, the first paragraph we read that started on the bottom of 85, and we're pretty good on time, Dave. We got 25 minutes, so that's why I'm doing a little recap here.
Oh,
Um,
great.
it starts on the bottom of 85. What this short paragraph just talks about is, hey, be open-minded to prayer and meditation. It's really the message. And then the next paragraph is, here's very clear, specific direction how you retire at night. And by the way, I don't think we said this. Don't do the retire at night once you're exhausted and you know you're going to close your eyes in 5 minutes and fall asleep. If you're like me and you can fall asleep quickly a lot of times, do this an hour or so before that. It's like when you retire at night, it's like when you're winding down. Okay. Now, if you screw something up after you've done your 11th step, you better do another quick 11th step or take care of it in the morning, right? best don't, what's this expression? Don't go to bed with dirty dishes in the sink, right? So the point of this whole paragraph is I ask myself these questions to see how I did for the day. That's it. It's that simple. And then what's the next paragraph? It's okay, so I slept and I wake up in the morning, very clear, specific direction on how I start my day with God. And it doesn't say this, but guys, my personal recommendation, born out of experience, at least 30 minutes. And in that 30 minutes, it's not, you don't have to sit there and chant or being om the whole time, but it's like, don't turn on the news, don't get into social media, don't start looking at work emails, don't do those things that are going to send yourself into a tizzy. Just be chill. Just be trying to talk with God a little bit. Read a little recovery literature if you like. Read a book if you like. Just be calm. I am telling you, it is a life-changing practice. Then the next paragraph is saying, okay, now that I'm into prayer and meditation, don't go off the deep end with what I think I'm hearing from God. Make sure I'm really getting my intuits and my decision making and my inspiration really from God. Because if you feel like you get some wild message, maybe bounce it off another person again,
Mm.
one of your running buddies, so that you don't do anything crazy. Okay, very simple to explain these paragraphs, guys. This is not. The work is difficult because nothing good comes easy. But what we're actually called to do is very simple. It's just an old book with some old-fashioned language. This is why we do these studies, to make it simple to comprehend. Okay. So let's move on. We're now on 86, first full paragraph. We usually conclude the period of meditation, so we're talking in the morning, with a prayer that we be shown all through the day what our next step is to be, that we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. So let's pause here. What is this talking about? And David mentioned this. Am I asking for help and direction how to solve my material problems? Am I saying, oh man, how am I going to make the rent? Oh man, how am I going to get my wife to not be angry after what I said last night? Oh man, how am I going to get to work? I'm going to be late. My boss not jump down my throat. No, it's not about any of those things. This is about me asking God, how can I best be positioned to do what he needs me to do? God is going to tell me the kind of husband I need to be today. God is going to tell me the kind of worker I need to be today, right? This is not about my selfish needs. How am I going to be fit to be of maximum service to God so I can serve all 8 billion of his kids on this planet, right? That's what that prayer is about. And how do I do that? Well, it says we ask especially for freedom from self-will, right? Remember back in the paragraph before, or two, it said, please divorce me from self-pity, dishonest, self-seeking motives. More of the same theme here. Bill's repeating himself, just using some different words. So ask especially for freedom from self-will, and are careful to make no request for ourselves only. We may ask for ourselves, however, if others will be helped. My bad joke is that I pray every morning for my wife to win the lottery. Okay?
Mm.
That's not what this is about, guys. This is not what this is about. All right? I'm saying, God, please put me in a position that I can help other people. If I benefit by it, that's just icing on the cake. But this is not, again, what's my motive? My motive is to serve. My motive is not to get. I'm trying to be divorced from self so that I can be God focused and other centered. Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that. Doing what? Praying for my selfish ends. Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that, and it doesn't work. You can easily see why. Well, can you easily see why? Not at the beginning. Now I know. Now I've learned. The reason why praying for my selfish ends doesn't work is because I never get those prayers fulfilled. God is not interested in fulfilling my selfish wants. What God wants me to do is think about him and how I can help all his kids. And God will give me what I need, because everything I have, as David already pointed out, is God-given. The balance of my bank account, my marriage, my business, my 6 dogs, all these things God gave to me. I'm their caretaker. God gave them to me to steward, but everything belongs to God.
Yeah, and to that prior paragraph, the book is telling us to test our thoughts, as David pointed out. Not all of them are coming from God. Well put. But with time and practice, we begin to rely upon this insight. We just do. We can. But then it says is we usually conclude this period of meditation and prayer with that we be shown all through the day what our next step will be. So that is a way for me to end it. That is a suggestion that the first 100 use for them, and what our next step is to be. That we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. So that could be my prayer. What do I need to take care of this problem? Maybe I have a conflict with an employee or a counterpart or something like that, or a financial decision, or a child who is distraught or having a hard time with their relationship. It's like, I don't know how to fix all those things, but I can go to God. And at least in my experience, because I have 5 daughters, my daughters are not looking for me to fix their problems. I've learned that through trial and error and a lot of error, what they're really looking for. And my wife has done this. We've been on, like, when my daughters lived in other parts of the country, and we would do a phone call and put her on speaker. My wife would mute the speaker right in the middle of our talk, right when my daughter started explaining what's going on in her life. And she's like, my wife would tell me this, David, this is not the time for you to sponsor your daughter. This is the time for you to listen. Listen. And I've learned how to be a really good listener with my kids. Like, they've taught me how to, unless they say, Dad, how do I do this? I kind of just listen. They just want me to be dad. They don't want me to be daddy who needs to walk them across the street, get them their bowl of cereal, change their diaper. They're not that age any longer. They're grown ass women. They just want someone to be there for them. So that's how God has taught me through prayer and meditation and quiet times to just be a good listener in my daughter's lives. And it is really expounded upon our relationships. So now my wife, on the other hand, can get away with the stuff that I can't. She just can't. She can say, no, this is what you need to do. I just know my lane. I know how to stay in my lane. Do it pretty good most of the time. So then it says we ask especially from freedom of prayer, from self-will, and careful not to make requests for ourselves only. I can't sit in judgment of other people. When I sit in judgment of other people, that does not give me the right. What I need to do is do the self-appraisal of myself, to do the 10th step, to discuss this with someone immediately, all these things. It's not to sit in judgment of my sister-in-laws, for example. I maybe not agree with everything that they do in their lives, or my own sister. One of my sisters is, I'll be quiet here. This is on tape, just in case one day they listen to. I adore my sisters. That's what I meant to say. Okay. So we may ask for ourselves, however, if others will be helped. God, what should I be? That is my prayer. It's such a simple prayer. What should I be in my sister's life? I'm getting what my sister, one of them's coming into town next week. I'm going to my cousin's house on Saturday for a big celebration. One of my sisters there, and I don't agree with the way she lives her life. God, what should I be in her life? You know what it's always been for the last couple 10. She's been sober for about 15, 18 years, stopped going to 12-step fellowship a long, long time ago. And in my experience, that does not work real well for me. I need you guys as desperately as I need sobriety, and sobriety meaning that I have a relationship with God. And I don't know that she does or does not, but my role in that thing is, what should I be, God? And I just need to be her brother. Do not need to be someone who sits in judgment of her. So anyways, we may ask ourselves, however, if others will be helped. We are careful never to pray for our own selfish ends. Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that, and it doesn't work. We can easily see why. And David's point is so clear. I never could see why before. Now I can. I see clearly what, if the prayer is, what should I be? It removes self from my life. And the last thing I want to say about that is, because when we learned on page 62 in the second paragraph, it says, so our troubles we think are basically of our own making. Am I making more troubles for myself? And then it says they arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholics is an extreme, Bill's being very clear here, of self-will run riot. Though he usually doesn't think so. And above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of selfishness. We must, or it kills us. Bill tells us what the problem is, and he gives us the guaranteed solution, which says God makes that possible. And there often seems no other way of entirely being rid of self without his aid. Is there any other way to look at that? Is I don't have the power to remove my selfishness, that I must continue to grow in effectiveness, understanding what God's will is for me.
Okay, moving on. We're on page 87 still, second full paragraph. If circumstances warrant, we ask our wives or friends to join us in morning meditation. Okay, so if appropriate. If we belong to a religious denomination which requires a definite morning devotion, we attend to that also. So if I say I'm a practicing member of a specific organized religion or faith, and it's prescribed to have a morning ritual of prayer meditation, I ought to do
Mhm.
it. Right? If not members of religious bodies, sometimes select and memorize a few set prayers which emphasize the principles we've been discussing. Now, David talked about this earlier. There's not a single God or higher power here. We all have our own. That's the beautiful wonder of 12-step recovery. So because we each have our own God, that means we can each have our own prayers. It is not for me to prescribe prayers for you to say. Um, However, sometimes I take guys through the steps, they don't even know where to start. So I say,
Mm.
well, here's what I do every morning, is I always say at the very least, steps, or excuse me, the step 3 prayer and step 7 prayer. You know, I may say other ones, but that's my bread and butter. I love those 2 prayers. There's so much important content in both of them in the book. You know, as we get from step 3 to step 7, is so much great content. Like I just love bookending those. So I make that suggestion. But ultimately, I'm going to find some prayers that work for me. And how do I find that? Well, so it says, if not members of religious bodies, we sometimes select and memorize a few set prayers, which emphasize the principles we've been discussing. So, like 3 and 7, and there's other prayers in this book. But it goes on to say, there are many helpful books also. A lot of books on prayer and meditation. Also, how about this novel idea? Suggestions about these books or these prayers may be obtained from one's priest, minister, or rabbi. They don't even have to be your priest, minister, or rabbi. I guarantee if you reach out to some priest, minister, or rabbi, they will talk your ear off about some ideas around prayer and some books and resources. And we have the internet too, right? Make sure you end up in the right websites. But there's some incredible online content about prayer and meditation. Incredible. And you'll find incredible prayer and meditation content specifically related to 12-step recovery. The resources we have today, guys, there's no excuse. The only excuse for me not easily finding some ideas about prayer and meditation is is a BS excuse. It's me being in sloth or laziness or fear, right? That I don't want to go and get some help. Be quick to see where religious people are right. Make use of what they offer. This is another opportunity, guys, to let go of old thinking. Right? I used to make fun of people that were into their religion. I tell this story a lot. I remember when I used to party all night, do drugs all night, and then drive my car around dangerously. I'm so lucky I never killed anybody, least of all myself. And I remember it's early morning. I've been up all night and I stopped to gas up my car and I'm still in my club clothes from the night before. And then I see this nice family because it's a Sunday morning, all dressed to the nines, dad wearing a suit, and I'm like scoffing, like, man, what a loser dressed up going to church. Who was the loser in that situation? Wasn't that beautiful family going to church, dressed up and looking dapper? It was the maniac who'd been up all night partying, poisoning himself, and then getting behind the wheel of the car. I have to let go of all these old ideas about people of faith, right? I've got to be quick to see where religious people are right.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with David more than that. I mean, that to me is uh letting go of all my ideas to find out that religious people are right. Now, Bill makes like four other references to religion. I'm not going to go to them in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and usually they're against religion. Earlier on page 10, I think it is, or something like that. You know, Bill just closed his mind off to religion. So we all know that this is a spiritual program. Religious people, that they are right. The book's telling me that they're right. But spirituality is a set of disciplines. Religion is a set of acts that they want me to do, which is fine and dandy because I'm a non-practicing Jew. My wife's a Catholic, and I've been to her church and gone with her many, 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 many times. And I like the priest. I like whatever they call that thing that they do up there when they're talking to everybody. I'm not Catholic. I don't know I'm listening. I'm paying
The
attention.
thing that they do. Yeah.
The thing that he's doing up there,
Yeah.
the anomaly, homily, or whatever they call it. I don't know what it is. Anyway, but and now I have a friend of mine who's a minister, and I wouldn't have done this in the past. Again, a non-practicing Jew that goes to an evangelical pastor who teaches the Bible, and I've been listening I get with him every Friday on Zoom from 8 o'clock to 9 a.m. And I'm learning so much stuff because I let go of my old ideas, my own prejudices. And I know God has directed me to do this because I need to be a better steward with all the things in my life, and I need to practice. I need to be I need to have more self-discipline. Anyways, so my wife and I do not pray in the morning meditation. We have in the past in the evening, kind of got away from it, but that does not allow me to take the day off. Not for me. I desperately need God in my life. So I do that, which she does. She does a form of meditation. Not really sure what it is necessarily because she gets up a few hours after I do, but she's kind enough to come to bed with me at night. So I appreciate that. So then it says, if we belong to a religious denomination which requires a definite morning devotion, we attend to that also. Circle the word also. This is not in place of Alcoholics Anonymous. I have seen so many people stop going to meetings and start going to church. Why? Because church is once a week. It's on Sunday at 9 or 10 or 11 a.m. And what happens to my spiritual condition? Because I'm not practicing in 10 and 11 any longer. I lose sight of step one. I pick up a drink or I become irritable, restless, and discontented again. This is not in place of, this is along with. I can do both. I have the time to do it. Please don't. And when I sponsor guys and well, I'm a really busy guy. You live in your car, buddy. How busy are you? You can't be all that busy. It's like, so church is great. And I know a guy who goes to church every Sunday. He's been doing it or every day he goes to a Catholic church in the morning at whatever time they open the doors. He's been doing that for 15 years. God bless him. I love, how conditioned he is to do that. The last thing it says, there are many helpful books also. Suggestions about these may be obtained from one priest, a minister, and rabbi. I have read some of these books. I think they're amazing. My mind is opened up to them. It's also enhanced my vocabulary a little bit. You wouldn't know it in this study here, but I swear to God it has. So that's all I have there.
All right, time check. We had 7 minutes, so I'm just going to read this
Okay.
through the end. It's basically a paragraph and a tiny paragraph. Okay. So we're at the very bottom of 87 here, guys. Last paragraph. As we go through the day, now everybody just think about this. As we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful and ask for the right thought or action. Let me put an idea in your minds. Is that direction? Maybe, right? How about this? Maybe it's a promise. Maybe that as the result of my prayer and meditation and my conscious contact with God, that when I'm going through the day and I become agitated or doubtful, maybe God pauses me and gives me the opportunity to ask for the right thought or action. Consider that. Maybe it's both. Maybe it's direction and a promise. We constantly remind ourselves we are no longer running the show. Humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. Who's the thy? Am I the thy? I am not thy. Thy is upstairs. All right? It's not the raccoon living in my attic. I'm pointing to God. Right? His will. If I do this many times during the day, humbly say to myself, thy will, God, your will be done, then what happens? Well, we are then in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. One of my spiritual gurus, Yoda, has got a line. He says, adventure, excitement. A Jedi seeks not these things. We need to be nice, moderate, balanced people in our spiritual selves. I don't want to be dwelling in excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. I need stability. I need normalcy. I need moderation. We become much more efficient. We do not tire so easily. We're not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. Oh my God, that was beyond a full-time job, trying to fit life to be the way that I wanted. It works. It really does. We alcoholics are undisciplined. So we let God discipline us in the simple way that we have just outlined, the prayer and meditation work, exercises, the disciplines. We become disciplined. How? By living a disciplined life. But this is not all. There's action and more action. Faith without works is dead. The next chapter is entirely devoted to step 12. It's not there's contemplation and thinking and more consideration. Yeah, I got to do those things. But ultimately, I must act and act again. I want to get close to God. I want to stay close to God. I want to grow in understanding and effectiveness so I can be his agent and go and help all 8 billion of his kids. I get this. I get to that point by being busy. It's a paradox in recovery. I'm telling you, David will tell you the same thing. The busier I am in recovery, the less busy I am in life. I don't know how it works. It is crazy.
Mm.
I have the time to do everything I need to do in my personal and professional life when I stay busy in recovery. It's crazy. It just happens. The less I do in recovery, I'm overwhelmed in my personal and professional life. Oh, I wonder why. Maybe
Mm.
because I've reverted to self-will, to trying to be the actor running the whole show. All right? Bring us home, David.
Okay, so as we go through the day, we pause. What is pause? And this is just me. I don't know about you or not. Where does pause come in? When I'm agitated. When am I agitated? Guess what agitation comes in? Long before anger or rage. Right? Think about it. Agitation comes in long before anger or rage, and I can't be angry. Should not be angry. And being doubtful comes long before deep trouble. And I am rarely agitated, but I am all seemingly more doubtful. So this is where what the directions are. When agitated, doubtful, we pray. We ask for the right thought or action. We constantly remind ourselves we're no longer running the show. Bottom of page 62, third paragraph, and how it works. It says we had to stop playing God. Why? Because it didn't work. That's why. And then it gives us great direction on what we're going to be in the scheme of life and what God says. God's going to be our director or principal. We're going to be his agent. He's going to be our father. We're going to be his children. So back up to page 88, because we're going to wrap this thing up in 2 minutes here. And it says, we humbly say to ourselves many times each day, and I underline this, thy will be done. Comes right from the third step prayer, right? And we're there in a much less danger of excitement. Excitement is dangerous for an alcoholic. Be very careful of excitement. Then it says, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, and foolish decisions. We become much more efficient. We do not tire so easily. We're not burning up energy foolishly as we do when we're trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. Right back to page 62. Am I playing God? Gotta ask myself, am I playing God? And then it says, it works, it really does. We alcoholics are undisciplined. Remember, for those who are chronic relapsers, there's how much time are you spending with prayer and meditation? How much time are you intensively working with others? And are you doing an inventory all the time? Just saying. Want to stay sober? Stay close to God and perform his work well.
That was step 11. Reminder next week, we're going to do rapid fire recap of steps 1 through 11. That'll be, what's today, the 15th? So that'll be the 22nd. And then the 29th will be our last study in this series. We'll bring everybody home with step 12.